What's going on, everyone? So there was a report the other day from the Chicago side of things that said Zach Lavine essentially could be had for pennies on the dollar. Basically a salary dump at this point. That their asking price has dropped tremendously. Both sides have basically said, hey, it's time to move on. They're done. Zach Lavine is apparently intrigued with the Los Angeles Lakers. He's been very public and open about like playing with LeBron James and Anthony Davis in LA. I mean, he had that interview when he was like with Chicago. I think it was like at an All-Star game or whatever, where he was like, yeah, I would love to play with LeBron and Anthony Davis. And then he's had like interviews. He had like an interview wearing like a Laker hat, or I think it was like an LA hat or something like that, right? Like he's dropped all the signals of like, hey, I want to go to the Lakers, right? The problem is like his salary. If he was making like 25 million, it'd be almost a no-brainer, right? I know people worry about his like injury history, but outside of this past season, he played 77 games the previous year. He played like 70 games before that. Like he's averaging around 65 to 70 games a season, which is basically what every star non-role player is averaging in today's NBA, right? Like very few guys in today's NBA are playing all 82 games. Right? There's very few Austin Reeves in the world. Most guys are only playing around 65 to 70 games at the most. Some are even less than that. Right? That's why the NBA set the rule to 65 games, because that was essentially the average that teams were or players were playing. Right? So the injury thing, I'm not like super concerned with. Right? It's more so of just like you'd have to give up so much to go get Zach Lavine. Plus, if you have to give up assets, a first, and all this stuff, it just doesn't really make sense when you could probably get other options. But I'm not against Zach Lavine at all, right? Like I was kind of chilling Zach Lavine at the trade deadline because I thought like, hey, if all else fails, Zach Lavine, if you can get him for essentially free, right, and you just have to give up salary, like just get him, right? And I do think he might have had an impact. Now, obviously, he got hurt in hindsight, and then he ended up getting surgery. But like even the surgery, it was kind of like he was expected to be back and was expected to play. And then all of a sudden the Detroit rumors started and he was just like, hey, you know what? I think I'm going to go take this surgery real quick, which I thought was funny. But obviously, again, regardless, he went and did that. There's got to be some precaution, right? But to me, the Lakers want to go get a star. They want to go get some key upgrades. Problem is like, is that really on the table? And what is the cost for other guys? Like Trae Young, like, it's not only do you have to give up all the salary, but you also have to give up like all of your picks and everything like that. And I like Trae. I like Trae a lot, right? But I question how does he fit alongside LeBron James? And I have a couple other concerns, but primarily like how does he fit alongside LeBron when he's so ball dominant and so on ball? If we didn't have LeBron, like let's say LeBron does leave this offseason, right? Like Trae makes a world of sense at that point. Like him and Anthony Davis I think would be a very good pairing. But it's the 2 years or whatever that he's alongside LeBron. Have those concerns. Plus, if it doesn't work out, kind of stuck, right? Where you don't have assets to maybe move off of guys or whatever. Maybe another team would take Trae, but still, like, there's always the possibility if he has a thin market now that he may have a thin market then, or maybe even thinner then, and kind of put you in this bind, right? Now, I'd love to go get a DeJounte Murray or something like that. Like, that would be great. But to me, if, like, all else fails, and you can go get Zach Lavine and not have to give up any picks or, like, really nothing, like, I don't know. To me, that sounds like a no-brainer. So there are rumors going around that the Lakers are actually intrigued with the idea of getting Zach Lavine if they can get Alex Caruso. Now, again, the reason I say rumors is because like it's all rumor until it isn't, right? So if that is true, I don't hate the idea, right? Like, to me, if you have to go get Zach Lavine by himself, kind of iffy on it. But if you could get Caruso in the deal, right? Like, kind of like, hey, we'll do you the solid, but we want Caruso. Maybe you give up, say, one first, because Caruso could probably yield Chicago a first by itself. So, like, let's say you have to give up this year's pick, right? You give up 17, and then you'd have to match salaries, and you go get Zach Lavine and Alex Caruso. To me, that's a no-brainer, right? Because Zach Lavine by himself solves like 90% of the Lakers' issues. Alex Caruso solves another like 10%, right? Like, I mean, the starting five of like Caruso, Lavine, Vanderbilt, LeBron, and Anthony Davis is tough, right? I mean, defensively, you're probably the best defense in the league. I mean, the Lakers with just Jared Vanderbilt and Anthony Davis were #1 the previous year. You add in Alex Caruso and Zach Lavine, who a lot of people act like he's a bum on defense. He's really not. He's like around league average, but like that's all you need when you're playing alongside Alex Caruso, Jared Vanderbilt, and Anthony Davis. And then LeBron, obviously, you have some defensive concerns with. But it all kind of hinges on D'Angelo Russell, right? Because if D'Lo ends up leaving, now you're basically giving up your entire roster to go get just Zach Lavine. So at that point, I just don't think it's worth it. But if D'Lo opts in, now you could still keep Austin Reeves, which I would rather keep Jared Vanderbilt, if I'm being honest. But it's the Lakers. They're obsessed with Austin Reeves. I love Austin Reeves. I don't have anything against Austin Reeves. I just think Jared Vanderbilt alongside Zach Lavine and Alex Caruso makes more sense than Austin Reeves, because you have Alex Caruso and Zach Lavine to kind of definitely make up for the offense. But basically, you got your third and fourth option, and then Jared Vanderbilt, whatever he gives you on the offense side, is just an added bonus, right? But you could keep Austin, because you could do D'Angelo Russell, Rui Hachimura, Gabe Vincent, and that right there gets you to basically $45 million, right? And then you'd have to throw in, like I said, one of Austin Reeves or Jared Vanderbilt, and then boom, now you're at $56 million. The Zach Lavine and Alex Caruso are like around 55 million, but let's just round it up, say 56 million. Like it lines up perfectly, right? So you could keep either Jared Vanderbilt or you could keep Austin Reeves, right? I think technically they could even throw in like a Torrey Craig if you wanted to. So I don't hate the idea. But again, it all kind of hinges on D'Angelo Russell. If you can pull that off, good luck. Right? I mean, seriously, good luck. Because you're talking about not only you have LeBron James and Anthony Davis, but now you have a bona fide just bucket, right? A guy who's one of the better off-ball shooters in the league. Right? You got a legit two-way guy who's one of the best on-ball defensive players of the league, and it just got all defense, right? Or I think it was second team all defense, but you got all defense, right? And he shot like 43% from three. You'd still have plenty of depth, right? Because that's the big concern. Like, what about the depth issue, right? Okay, well, so let's say your starting five is, like I said, Alex Caruso, Zach Lavine, Jared Vanderbilt, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, right? You could go sign a Chris Paul in free agency. You'd have Max Christie. You'd have probably Taurean Prince sticks around. He's talked about how he wants to stick around. So you probably have Taurean Prince. You have Christian Wood because he already opted in. Can you go get a Valanciunas or go get a Andre Drummond and turn yourselves into Los Angeles Bulls, right? Like there's options there. You'd probably be 10 guys deep. You only need to run 7 or 8 guys anyway. Like, to me, it would be a no-brainer, right? Like, because if we're being honest, Donovan Mitchell's probably off the table, right? Even if he does become available, it's very unlikely that we're going to land him because there's just too many other teams that can outbid us. Unless Donovan Mitchell's like, no, we have to go, or I have to go to Lakers. I will only go. If he kind of pulls an Anthony Davis, then yes, we can get him. Outside of that, some other team is going to get him. Then you look at the other side, like Trae Young. Trae Young costs as much as Zach Lavine, but it also costs all of your picks. And Zach Lavine, there is no question about fit. The only concern that you could point to for the Lakers would be health, but you could say that for pretty much every team, right? Like, because LeBron James is older, Anthony Davis has been Mr. Iron Man the last 2 seasons, but he does have a history. Zach Lavine, again, a lot of people point to the history that he has, but it's not as bad as people make it out to be. I mean, it's not the best in the world, but it's not as bad as they make. If he plays 65 games, we're good. Alex Caruso has a little bit of an injury history. And then Jared Vanderbilt, he doesn't really have an injury history. He's actually been very good the last few seasons. He's played around 68 games, something like that. 68 and I think 70 off the top of my head last few seasons. But, he just came off of pretty much only, I think he played, 23 games, something like that this past season. So there is a little bit of injury concerns. But if that team is healthy, good luck. Again, you'd have defense, you'd have shooting, you'd have rebounding, you'd have everything you want, right? It's just now you just are rounding out the roster. Like I said, maybe you get a Chris Paul, maybe you go get if you get a Valanciunas, that'd be a home run, right? Like, but you also have all of your picks, right? Like I said, maybe you lose the 17th, but you still have all your pick swaps. You have all your remaining first. You have 5 seconds, right? Well, I guess 4 because they draft somebody with 55. But even that, you could use that trade, right? So you'd have all of your assets to go make a deal later at the trade deadline, right? Or if, let's say, Zach Lavine doesn't work, right? Like you say you give it this year, right? Say it doesn't work. Now he's got, let's say, 2 years on his deal. Like, you could get out of the contract if you needed to. Like, that would be absolute worst case scenario, but you have the option to do that if you needed to. But even then, like, he's still young enough to where even after his contract, you could give him a more reasonable contract, sign him to $20 million a year or whatever, right? Especially if he's healthy and actually fits. I just think you're in a much better position, right? So, but it all kind of, to me, it hinges on, can you get Alex Caruso in the deal, and what does it cost with Caruso? Because if they're like, oh, yeah, we'll give you Zach Lavine, we'll give you Caruso, but we want 2 first, hard pass. Good luck, right? Good luck getting rid of Zach Lavine, right? You can keep him, right? But if it's like, hey, give us this year's pick, right? Or even if they're like, hey, like, because what if you could keep this year's pick? Like, what if you could draft Zach Edey or something like that, right? Like, or, or Ware or something, right? And maybe now you already got your big man, right? But, like, let's say you could draft Zach Edey and you trade the 2029 pick, right? Like, something like that. And it's like, here, we'll give you this one, all right? Keep 17, draft Zach Edey, bring in Caruso and Lavine, and just let the cards fall where they may, right? Like, I think you have more than enough talent to win. If we had a healthy Zach Lavine against Denver, I think we win that series, right? Like, seriously, Austin Reeves was, like, looked scared at times in that series. Like, he didn't really show up until basically game 4 when it was too late. D'Angelo Russell was extremely hot and cold, and Rui Hachimura was a complete no-show. Right, so, I mean, if you swap those 3 for Zach Lavine, I think you at least win 1 or 2, bare minimum, 1 or 2 more games than you did. So now, bare minimum, you're going to game 6, maybe game 7. Right? Like, I actually think that they might have been able to win that, especially if you had Caruso too. Right? Imagine if instead of Reeves, D'Lo, Gabe Vincent, and Rui Hachimura, you had Zach Lavine and Alex Caruso. We probably beat Denver. Right? We might end up being in the NBA Finals right now, right? Like, because all those games were that close. You don't think Alex Caruso would have been a different? You don't think he would have been the difference of 20 points or whatever that series was decided by? Of course. You don't think Zach Lavine would have been the difference? Like, so anyway, as always, this is a discussion. Pass question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Do you like the idea of taking on Zach Lavine if you can get Alex Caruso? Because that seems to be the deal, right? That the Lakers are interested in Lavine if they can get Caruso, because they regret letting Caruso go. So it's kind of like, hey, we'll take Zach Lavine if we can get Caruso. If we can't get Caruso, then we don't really want Lavine. That's kind of the deal. And look, that's what I would be at too, if it's me. But are you the same way? Are you not? Think just, stay away from both of them. Just get Lavine. Problem is, like, I don't know if you could get just Caruso. Like, I think it would cost more. Like, you'd probably take you a first couple seconds or 2 firsts to go get just Caruso, right? Because they want so much for him. To me, it's like, instead of you getting 2 firsts, we're taking on Zach Lavine. And D'Lo is an expiring contract. Rui Hachimura you could actually use. Gabe Vincent makes a lot of sense off the bench as, like, a supplement for Caruso, right? And he's on a very cheap, reasonable deal like Caruso was, right? Like, it's just, you start going down the list and it's like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And then, you have to give up a Jared Vanderbilt. It's like, well, now you're getting one of the top defensive players in the league. Like, because, again, Lakers probably keep Austin Reeves. But, again, let me know down in the comments. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. Lets me enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.